Good morning. Normally on Thursdays, we have dads with coffee, but one of the dads has a sinus infection and is unable to be with me today. So we're going to postpone that for another week. So you get me on the drive as we are heading into the office today. You know, New year, you have new challenges, you have new goals, you have new things that you want to accomplish, right? Of course, we do. We all do. And one of the things that uh, many of us get a challenge to do is is to read through the Bible, or maybe to go to the gym, or maybe to lose weight, or now you're saying, well, hey, those are just resolutions, right? Well, I think that resolutions and commitments and actually doing it are different kinds of things. And so I can resolve that I want to do something, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do anything about it. So sometimes it's easier just to begin to think of goals and challenges and obstacles and opportunities. It's a little different. Well, so I took some time off for from the gym, from running. I had some issues I had to deal with physically, and wanted to take care of a couple of those things, heal up a little bit, and so I've slowly started going back. And it's amazing as I talk with people, uh, the number of supplements that a person can take. There's all. I take a lot of supplements anyway. I mean, right now, who isn't taking a vitamin C, two vitamin Ds, a B complex? I mean, who's not taking these kinds of things? Uh, as well as many of you I know are taking even prescription medication. Um, I have a low dose cholesterol medication that I take to maintain that. And so we all have these different things that we do and that we take because of the benefits that they're supposed to be providing, right? Well, it's just interesting to me. I was reading an article today concerning different kinds of supplements that you can take to increase the effect of going to the gym, or the increase the effect of exercise and things of that nature. And it's mind-boggling. There's so many things out there, so many researches out there, so many opportunities out there. You don't hardly ever know what to believe. But here's the thing, that every one of them, all the articles that you'll read, they all are doing the same thing. They're trying to help you understand, or they're giving you a sense of hope for a better tomorrow than you have today. They're like, hey, you can continue to do what you're doing today, and but if you'll take this, you're going to get far better results. You said, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, in our life, you can continue to do the things that you've always done, and you're going to get the results you've always gotten. But if you will take some spiritual challenges, if you'll challenge yourself spiritually, if you'll walk through some difficulties with your head and your heart held high in the hand of God and in the presence of God, you're going to find yourself on the backside of that far better off than you are right now. I ran across something in Luke chapter 4 that honestly I hadn't really noticed before. And so in the daily readings, Luke 4 and 5 was our reading. And so I was reading through that, and I noticed something that I hadn't noticed before. And I saw it, and I thought, well, that's really weird, because I went back and I read Matthew's passage, and it wasn't there. I read Mark's passage, it wasn't there. And then I read John, and John doesn't touch on this at all. He does something radically different. As you know, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are very similar in their structure, similar in their presentation style, and in their content. Now, they're writing to different audiences, and so they will have different flares about things here and there. But I was reading through that passage, and so I went back and I read it again, and I thought, well, that's just odd the way that Luke decided to word this particular situation. And so I went and of course I have some Bible study tools, and I looked up the different words. I thought, they're not all the same word. There are three different words that Luke is using. Isn't that odd? Isn't that interesting? And so it got me to asking, if Luke is going to use it in this way, then is there something to that? Is there something important that we need to know? Now, there are many, many times that we can read the English version of it and we'll draw our own conclusions. And that's not the way we should do that. We don't need to just take our situation and try to read our situation into Scripture. That's not appropriate. What we need to do is we need to understand what is the original writer trying to say to the original reader about God, and what is he challenging them to do? What's he presenting about God and Jesus, so that we can see the truth that was there and apply it to today. Totally different. So I look up and I find, okay, there's three different words. What's Luke trying to say? Well, one of the things that we need to understand is that Luke came out. He wasn't one of the 12, was he? He wasn't one of the 12 disciples, and he wasn't walking with Jesus, and he didn't have that experience. Luke was a doctor. He came at this later, and as one of my friends suggested when I was talking about this in a discussion group that I have, he brought up the point. He said, all Luke knows is walking by the Spirit. He didn't walk with Jesus. Matthew walked with Jesus. You say, well, Mark didn't walk with Jesus. Now understand, all Mark is doing is writing down everything Peter tells him to say. So Mark really could be called Peter. Okay, let's just understand that. But Mark wrote it, but he writes everything that Peter says. And so those two walked with Jesus. John, who wants to do it differently, he walked with Jesus. Luke didn't walk with Jesus. So does Luke have a different kind of perspective? I would say, yes, he probably does. So I'm reading Luke 4, and I'm like, this is just weird. So what did he say? Well, here's what he said. When Jesus was baptized, it says that being full of the Holy Spirit, okay? He was full of the Holy Spirit at that time. And then he says he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness for the purposes of temptation, for the purposes of development. Now, isn't that interesting? And when he exits the wilderness, he says, and then he returned back to his home in the power of the Spirit. And you say, oh, now you're just splitting hairs here. I mean, it's all the Spirit. It is, but why does Luke use such different terminology? If there's nothing to it, fine. But there's something that rattles around in my heart and my head that suggests to me that I think there may be something to this. There may be something to the differences that Luke uses. So at the moment of his baptism, at the inauguration, if you will, of the ministry of Jesus. Now, it's not the inauguration of his perfection. It is not the inauguration of his life. It's not the inauguration of the reality of Jesus. No, Jesus was real. Jesus was perfect. He was all those things. But his ministry officially took effect at this baptismal moment. It was like the one bookend to the beginning. It was, here's where we're starting. Here's where we're going. And so Jesus has this filling. It's not like the Spirit was never present in his life. He just had this filling of the Spirit. Now, I know we Baptists have a hard time with this, but the reality simply is this, that he had, and we have at times, a special dispensation of the Spirit. We have a special giving of the Spirit for important times in our life. Who was going to have a hard time? He was going to have a hard time. He was getting ready to go into 40 days of fasting, and then the devil was going to really hammer him. Go back and read. That's the order of it. And so he has this special moment where the heavens open, the dove descends, and he is filled in that moment with the Spirit. What does that mean? I don't know, but I know that he had a special moment in that time, maybe for the crowd and possibly for himself as well. But in that moment, he was then led by the Spirit. Now, there's a very important thought here. How many of you have given your heart to Jesus? You've been indwelt by the Spirit, good church term right there. You've been filled with the Spirit. You are now a spiritual being tied to God, can say, I was led by the Spirit today. Because if you're full of it, you need to be led by it. And if you're going to be full of the Spirit, we need to be led by the Spirit. And if we go day in and day out and day in and day out, and we cannot say, you know, I was led by the Spirit today, why? If you're full of it, be led by it. This is the model we see of Jesus. And the thing is, it's so easy for us to say when all the good things happen, oh, the Spirit led me to this. And we then share a story that is wonderful and positive. Jesus, when he returned home, could have said, I was led by the Spirit into 40 days of the most difficult, intense time of my life. My friends, if you weren't led by the Spirit through these last 10 months, you are now in a hopeless moment. You are so aggravated. You are so frustrated. You're done with COVID, right? Of course. But what if, being full of the Spirit, we are being led by the Spirit into these difficult times? Now, back to my gym routine. Everything I read says, when you work out, you are going to put your body through some difficult times. But on the back side of that, in the healing process, that's the growth that happens. When you lift weights or when you run or when you stretch the muscle out, you're actually having micro tears that happen inside the muscle. And in the healing process, that muscle then grows and it increases in volume, increases in strength, increases itself. The same is true for our lives. When we are filled with the Spirit of God and we are led by the Spirit of God, possibly into some of the most intense moments of our lives, on the back side of it, we then can say, I'm empowered now by the Spirit. This is what Jesus says. This is how Luke records it. He says, you know what? Jesus, being full of the Spirit, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. God took him through an intense moment. How many of us pray to God, get me out of the intense moment? But how many of us are praying in the intense moment, for the intense moment? God, I know that you led me into this moment. And God, I wouldn't dare ask you to remove it from me because it's there for a reason. So God, help me to understand what it is. Help me understand why. And God, most of all, walk with me through this most intense, difficult moment of my life. So on the backside, I can give you glory. I can share your glory. I can spread your gospel because I survived it. And I lived through it, and God, I am better for it on the backside. Whoa, wait a minute. How many of us can sit here on January 21 and say, you know what? I think I'm better off on this side of COVID than I was on the other side. Now, whoa, that's insanity, right? No, it's spiritual development and walking. If you're full of it, be led by it. And when you're led by it, you're going to be empowered by it. Your spiritual development and your spiritual growth only is going to happen through intense, difficult, obstacle-ridden moments of your life when God has led you into that. So, 3 questions for you today as we wrap this thing up. Question number 1, are you full of the Spirit of God? Are you full of the Spirit of God? Can you say there was a time when you asked and received Jesus Christ into your heart and life, and in so doing, received the Spirit of God into your life? Was there a moment? Was there a time? Are you full of the Spirit of God? Now, see, we can have given our heart to Jesus Christ, and in his infinite wisdom has allowed us the opportunity and given us the choice to say, you know what? I'm going to run my own day today. Wow, confession. We all done it, right? Haven't we all done that? Hey, I'm going to run my own life today. You know what? I got this. And what happens every time I do that? I fall flat on my face. I break my spiritual nose. I crack another spiritual tooth. And I wonder, why am I so mangled? Why am I in so many difficulties? Why am I in so much pain? Why is this so hard? When it seems like other people, it's not so hard. It's because I have chosen to have God hold on to my eternity, but in some fashion and form, I've decided that he can't handle my today. So if God can handle my tomorrow, why can't he handle my today? I think that we've got to be very careful in what we do and how we walk through that. Because if he can handle my tomorrow, he certainly can handle my today. So I need to be filled with the Spirit of God. And then question number 2, are you being led by the Spirit of God, or are you being led by your logical choices? Go back and read Abraham's episodes in the reading plan. This man made logical choices and failed every time. Go back and read it. That line of logic and faith is an important demarcation in our life. While we need to be using logic, there are many, 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 many times that we have to set the logic aside and take the faith choice. We cannot let logic run every decision, because then we will not be led by the Spirit of God. Be careful here. Be careful in what you do. Be careful in how you do that. Can you say, I am being led by the Spirit of God? This is incredibly important for us, because a world all around us wants to see, is there any difference? Why should I do this? Why should I entertain this concept, this notion of God's love in Jesus? Why in the world could I, why would I? So, are you being led by the Spirit? Can you say, in your decision-making process, in the places you go, the people you meet, the conversations that you have, I am being led by the Spirit of God? And finally, my last question today. Are you walking in the power of the Spirit? Are you walking in the power of the Spirit? This is incredibly important, because I see so many Christians that are having this difficulty. We're having the difficulty of the COVID pandemic crisis. Oh, I don't know what to do. How am I supposed to make it another? Oh, I just don't know. Can I breathe? Can I go? Can I walk? And because we were just filled with fear, and we're weak. I see so many Christians today that are being sucked in to this politic, and being sucked in to the negativity, and being sucked in to all these things, because we are running on logic, not being led by the Spirit. And in so doing, we are getting weaker and weaker and weaker. If all we do is sit on the spiritual couch and become a spiritual couch potato, you are going to get flabby. You're going to get fat. You're going to get weak. You're going to atrophy your spiritual muscles. My friends, it is time for us to not only be full of it, but to be led by it, so we can be empowered in our day to day. There's hope in that. There's healing in that. There is help in that. Are you empowered by the Spirit? You guys have a great day, a great weekend, and God bless you. We'll be online this weekend. We'll see you this Sunday.